Fox News alert, brand new documents have just been unsealed in the Michael Flynn case, which is popping wide open once again. This comes on the heels of his attorney, Sidney Powell, who filed a motion to vacate his guilty plea.
General Flynn was innocent and was completely set up and framed by the upper echelon of the FBI, that small group of the highest ranking members of the FBI that deliberately set about from at least August 15, 2016 on to catch General Flynn in something.
This is the miscarriage of justice. Why did the FBI and so many in Washington want Mike Flynn off the stage and in jail?
When Flynn ran the Defense Intelligence Agency under Barack Obama, he clashed with the CIA. Flynn thought the CIA had been politicized by Obama and was covering up the truth about al-Qaeda.
He knew where the bodies were buried. He understood what was going on.
He had already said that he was going to audit all the intelligence agencies and seriously reduce their manpower if he were in a position to do so.
In 2012, your agency was saying, quote, the Salafists, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Al-Qaeda in Iraq are the major forces driving the insurgency in Syria. In 2012, the US was helping coordinate arms transfers to those same groups. Why did you not stop that? I'm here in Washington, D.C. to interview a man who until very recently was America's top military spy chief, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, and before that, a commander with JSOC, the elite military unit which helps run President Obama's shadow war.
It goes before 2012. I mean, I don't think it was a willful decision.
A willful decision to go support an insurgency that had Salafists, Al-Qaeda, and Muslim
a willful
Brotherhood.
decision to do what they're doing. Which you'd have to really ask the president, what is it that he actually is doing?
As I've said before, this aspect of our strategy was moving too slowly, but the fall of Ramadi has galvanized the Iraqi government. So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province.
You are basically saying that even in government at the time, you knew those groups were around, you saw this analysis, and you were arguing against it, but who wasn't listening?
I think the administration.
According to volunteer forces who are fighting the terrorists, American helicopters dropped boxes of weapons in Yathrib and Balad districts in the Salahuddin province. Reports say the U.S. military has airdropped weapons for the ISIL on several occasions.
Obama had essentially fired him from being head of the Defense Intelligence Agency because he was so outspoken about the rise of ISIS.
ISIS is honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS, okay? He's the founder.
And so it made sense as one of the few, kind of swamp creatures to support Trump as a candidate. It made sense that he would become the national security advisor. And then I believe he was targeted because he knew where all the bodies were buried, and he knew.
Iran continues to threaten U.S. friends and allies in the region. The Obama administration failed to respond adequately to Tehran's malign actions, including weapons transfers, support for terrorism, and other violations of international norms. The Trump administration condemns such actions by Iran that undermine security, prosperity, and stability throughout and beyond the Middle East, and which places American lives at risk.
Why in the world would the so-called deep state target that man to take down this president?
I would remind everybody that President Obama told President-elect Donald Trump he had, quote, two things to worry about: North Korea and Michael Flynn.
So if the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals and who would be there. And I thought it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over.
So this question says, what is our goal? Truth, admission, or to get him to lie so we can prosecute him and get him fired? That is one that stands out. Here's another one. If we're seen playing games, White House will be furious. Protect our institution by not playing games.
What did he think they were coming over there for?
I don't think he knew. We didn't tell him. Just said, sending over a couple of agents. I want to ask you some questions. I didn't have this conversation, my deputy director did, but hope you got a few minutes you can sit down and talk to them. And he said, sure.
After McCabe called and said, I want to send a couple of guys by to talk to you about the Russia thing, and it's no big deal.
When you meet with the FBI and you meet with federal prosecutors, the first thing we tell you is lying to me could result in 5 years in a federal prison.
If it's a criminal interview, then why did you treat him so differently from the way you did Hillary Clinton? Remember, Martha, she had a medium-sized law firm in the room with her. They gave the questions to her lawyers before they interviewed her, and they most assuredly told her there's a consequence for lying, none of which they did for Michael Flynn.
If General Flynn was a gangbanger or a mafia guy, they would have sat down with him, they would have told him this is a criminal investigation, they would have identified themselves as FBI agents, told him the reason for the interview, told him he had a right not to answer questions, told him if he made false statements that could be grounds for prosecution, and if he made true statements that could be used against him in a prosecution.
Nobody else was there. They interviewed him in a conference room at the White House Situation Room, and he lied to them.
He's charged with lying to the FBI about the nature of his conversation with the then Russian ambassador Kislyak.
If you look at the interview, it does appear that they had a plan. If he acknowledged what happened, they would say you violated the Logan Act. If he didn't tell it, they would accuse you of perjury.
When I looked at the information, I said, I don't think he did anything wrong. If anything, he did something right. He was coming into office. He didn't just call Russia. He called and spoke to both ways. I think there were 30-some-odd countries.
He didn't lie. The agents said he showed no signs of deception.
And yet they still pursued him, still went after him for supposedly lying to the FBI, even though the agents doing the interview didn't think he was. And one of those agents, of course, was the now famous Peter Strzok.
Corrupt FBI official Peter Strzok demanded that the investigation stay open until the Bureau could invent a crime and crush Michael Flynn.
Not once in my 26 years of defending our nation did my personal opinions impact any official action I took.
They framed him. One of the things that I discovered in representing him is that they made material changes in the FBI report of the interview when they went to the White House on January 24th and conducted the ambush interview of General Flynn.
So this adds a whole new, really suspenseful element to the weird case of Mike Flynn, right?
Think about what happened in 3 weeks in January of 2017. On January 3rd, Chuck Schumer on the Rachel Maddow show says,
"You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you."
The very next day, January 4th, Peter Strzok overrules the agents who say Mike Flynn did nothing wrong, overrules them because Comey and McCabe told him to.
I understand that my sworn testimony will not be enough for some people. After all, Americans are skeptical of anything coming out of Washington. But the fact is, after months of investigations, there's simply no evidence of bias in my professional actions.
January 6th, the FBI and other people in the intel community in the Obama administration go to Trump Tower and try to set up the president. Remember, this is where Jim Comey says after the meeting's done, I want to talk to the president. He tells the president about the dossier. The dossier they already knew was false, they knew was Russian disinformation, and they knew was paid for by the Clinton campaign. And then just 2 weeks after that, we have the FBI going to the White House to set up Michael Flynn. All that happens in 3 weeks' time. This shows you they were out to get the president, and they were willing to do whatever it took to get him, including going after a 3-star general who had served our country for 3 decades.
So there may have been crimes committed targeting General Flynn, in addition to the crimes we're seeing evidenced in the documents this week.
The only crimes are by the FBI, and that's obvious now.
If they can do this to Michael Flynn, if they can set him up, then they can do this to anybody else.
The targeting of Flynn was about targeting Trump, and that's where the coup had its origins.
Apparently what we were supposed to have done was to ignore the Russian interference, ignore the Russian meddling and the threat that it poses to us. And oh, by the way, blown off what the then Commander-in-Chief, President Obama, told us to do, which was to assemble all the reporting that we could, that we had available to us, and put it in one report that the President could pass on to the Congress and to the next administration. And while we're at it, declassify as much as we possibly could to make it public, and that's what we did.
I think General Michael Flynn is a patriotic American who served with great distinction in the armed forces of the United States, and I'm deeply troubled by the revelations of what appear to have been investigative abuse by officials in the Justice Department.
what happened to General Flynn should never happen again to a citizen of this country. Yes, please.
Are you considering to bring him back into your administration?
Well, I think he's a fine man. I think it's terrible what they did to him. It's something that nobody's asked me, but you're asking me for the first time. I would certainly consider it. Yeah, I would.
What do you think, if anything, should happen to James Comey then? What's your opinion on that?
My preference? I'd love to see the death penalty. And boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, if I could flip the switch myself, I'd do it. Because these men are traitors.
People ask me all the time, why did he plead guilty? I mean, think about it. I can tell you unequivocally that I was absolutely threatened. I was absolutely threatened with being indicted. You know, I had a father that absolutely fell on the sword, to protect me from going through something that I would have had to put my then 4-month-old and my wife through. I can just tell you right now that, I mean, something has got to happen before this election in November. I mean, something has to happen. I'm sick and tired of reading about the potential fixes and what we're going to do here and there. I want to see people held accountable. I'm tired. I'm tired of these guys running their mouths on Twitter, running their mouths on social media. I want to see. Let's just see one big name arrested. Just one. I don't care. I don't care if it's Brennan or Comey. Just one of them.